Drilling fluids touch just about everything in the drilling process. We're here to deconstruct the drilling process and drilling fluid concepts to provide a deeper understanding of our industry. In each episode, we'll share information, talk to interesting people, and maybe share a few stories along the way. Welcome to the Flowline, a production of AES Drilling Fluids, brought to you by Matt Offenbacher and Justin Gauthier.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Flowline, here with my lovely co-host, Matt Offenbacher. It's, we're kind of getting close to midway of the week, but, we were going to try and knock a bunch of them out yesterday, weren't we, Matt? But things just got a little busy, so we're back at it today, 2 days in a row.
Well, when you record, we normally record on Mondays, and that's been a good rhythm for us, except for Mondays can be quite hectic as well.
Right.
So, yes, we're going to get a few episodes in the queue, so we make sure that we don't miss any with our travel schedules and that sort of thing.
That could happen. Before we get going in the mud world, Matt, you took the boys to the Astros game last night. Is that right?
Well, I didn't. I went with some of the fellas.
Okay.
We all paid our own way. We really need to find. Never mind.
Yeah, by the way,
it's foolish. Yeah. So we went to the game. It was the big deal was Carlos Correa's first game back since being traded back from the Twins, and it was Alex Bregman, who's now with the Boston Red Sox, his first time back in Houston. Since he signed with them.
Wait, Carlos Correa, who's he with? No.
He's with the Astros now.
Oh, he's back?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
he's
that.
He's back.
I know.
My
I'm
goodness,
terrible.
Yeah,
I know.
Get out from under the rock. Okay. Just had a child. Plenty of excuses between the trade deadline and now. But so the city, just the energy was awesome. Super. Everybody was going nuts. And Christian Javier, who hasn't pitched in like a year and a half due to injury, it was his first start after a long road to recovery. So, thanks to my wife for allowing me to go, and we had a good time, and they won. So
wow, what a great game! Actually, I'm taking the kids on Saturday.
Okay,
to, the ones against the Orioles.
Yeah,
the Orioles. Should be fun. We went on Father's Day, and surprisingly, my kids loved every inning, all 10 of them, because they went into overtime.
Yeah,
or extra innings, I guess. And so we had on Saturday, we went to Wildcatters Day because my son's playing for the Houston Wildcatters, and they do this like annual thing, and you can put your name in for prizes, and they've got really nice raffle prizes and stuff. And my daughter, she only put 2. There was like 20 prizes. It was for Astros tickets, and it was for a trip to Florida. She didn't win either one. But I was like, you know what? And I was like kind of surprised. Like, what ones did you put your name in for? She's like, the Astros. Like, I really want to go to an Astros game again. And I was like, sold.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we're doing that as like a back to school kind of night out, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it should be fun.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, enough said. It sounds like the Astros are making some headway on the personnel front.
Yes.
That's exciting as we get closer to October. Are you feeling confident as we go into?
It's going to be a race down the stretch, right? The Astros are only up by about a half a game right now. Maybe a game. I can't remember how the Mariners did last night. But anyways, it's very close. But they are getting a lot of reinforcements. It's just, you want to get hot at the right time. So hopefully they get hot. A couple of other injured pitchers are coming back. Sean Dubin, Luis Garcia, JP France, we're just a bunch of arms coming back, along with Yordan Alvarez comes back, and
his hand's still not better.
I mean, he's still going through some stuff, some progressions. Jake Myers, center fielder, is still not back. So, I mean, it will be a loaded lineup if everybody can get healthy at the right time. It's like the cavalry's coming.
Wow.
But it can't wait too much longer,
Jeez, no kidding.
So.
Well, hopefully the timing works out just right when they need it.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to the mud world. We kind of interesting conversation, one that we have fairly often, is just sort of the communication and the dynamic between the office and the field. And if you've been in, not even mud, but just oil field services in general, that oftentimes can be challenging, as when you communicate with one side of the equation, a lot of times it doesn't translate to the other side of the equation, meaning office to the field. And even sometimes we have to play middleman,
yes,
which can be challenging. But anyway, I thought it'd be kind of cool, and actually you came up with the idea, but I totally love it. It's just kind of the talk through the sort of the pain points, and maybe some good, constructive criticism from just an overall communication standpoint, when you're dealing with the office and the field, and how maybe we can just be better aligned to help make better decisions and be a bit more on the same page when it comes to what we're doing out in the field.
Yeah, I think, it just seems like sometimes we can end up in the middle of these things, or I think just expectations can be misaligned.
Yeah.
We're sort of limited in some ways when, these are two different basically departments of the people in charge. And
Yeah.
so if we're sort of triangulated in the middle of it, we got to be careful because we don't want to upset anybody or look like we're going around anyone. And at the same time, like, everybody's got to perform.
Right.
So how do we get there?
Especially when everyone thinks they're the boss.
Yeah, and and they are the boss of. It goes back to that gray area of who's in charge. Kind of breaking down the cast of characters. So you have the drilling consultant, or as we would call the company man, in more broad vernacular, I guess.
Yeah.
You've got the drilling engineer in the office, and you got the mud engineer at the rig, and so the drilling engineer. Sometimes the relationship is, hey, I'm the drilling engineer. I write the drilling program. I got all this approved. Your job, drilling consultant at the rig, is to execute what I said to do. Well, the relationship is not necessarily always like that per se, even if philosophically that's like how the diagram works. You get the permitting, you do all that stuff in the office, but like there's all of the gray area of like, okay, when are we gonna pick up pipe? When are we gonna do this? And there's no way you can script every single little nuanced detail of those operations from the office. And you also have to appreciate that a lot of these drilling consultants, there's a broad background of some of these folks broke out as, roughnecks and roustabouts, and they worked their way up, and they've got 30 years of field experience, and you might have a drilling engineer who's 3 years out of college, who has a lot of, theoretical smarts, but could really benefit from all that experience. And like, how do we get these guys to, understand, like, between the two of y'all, we could do a lot. As opposed to, who's going to push or pull or that kind of thing. And so I think that's, part of the dynamic. And then the other part of it is, as field personnel, if you're the mud engineer, you might have the program all written out and we're supposed to go by the program. And then the company man says, well, I want you to do it this way. And okay, well, you have a couple of choices. One, you can do what they say.
Right.
Two, you can make a phone call to your account manager and say, what should I do? Another one, you can, say, hey, we need to talk to your boss or something. But like, sometimes we get from drilling engineers, hey, if my people in the field aren't doing what you think they should be doing, I need you to tell me. And the problem with that is this poor mud engineer has to work with them every day. And if they're sort of, hey, your job is to kind of be a snitch, that whole team dynamic is just shattered at the rig site. And so we find ourselves in these positions where it's like, well, why didn't you tell us? And it's, well, look, we try and convey the message. We try and make everything clear in the program. And sometimes it's even just on the fly. Like, there's no time to be like, hey, let's call town and make sure that everyone's okay with this. And other times it's, if the company representative at the rig site is that drilling consultant, like, who am I to doubt what they have to say? They represent the voice of the operator, at least in that context.
Yeah. No, you can often get kind of stuck in the middle, dealing with, because ultimately you report directly to your, this AES is like, the engineering manager and the account manager, basically. And then but at the rig site, what you're trying to do is keep the company, on-site company representative or the company man happy.
Yes.
Right? Because if the company man's happy, most of the time everyone else is happy, because then the account manager in the office, isn't hearing it from the drilling engineer that the company man's happy or displeased with the mud engineer. And so it's this weird sort of spider web of trying to make everything work and keep everyone happy. But at the rig site, when it's 3 a.m, the last thing a mud engineer wants to do is get chewed out by the company rep for doing something that he thought he was supposed to do, but the company rep doesn't. And then you can get into this odd dynamic. But at the end of the day, you do have the drilling consultant or the company man on location who really is in charge at the rig. And then depending on their relationship with their office personnel, the tough time is sometimes they have more authority.
Yeah.
Depending on the operator, and then sometimes they know that they're to work directly as per the, say, drilling superintendent or the drilling engineer. So again, it's quite nuanced. It's not like, if you look at an org chart, it's very simple of this, and that. So hopefully we're making it as clear as mud for folks that maybe aren't familiar with the dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, can you think of just an example where you were sort of stuck in the middle and having to, okay, I have to put this on my report, or you feel like I can't put this on the report because I was told not to, but how do I keep my records?
Fairly often, right?
Yeah.
Until you get in a smooth rhythm and everyone trusts each other. But when you're just breaking out with a new customer, there's a lot of, hey, this is how we're going to do it. I don't care what your boss tells you, but this is how we do it on this rig. And, the drilling engineer, he's going to be fine with it or she's going to be fine with it. So let's just do, and then, okay, well, I trust you because you're the one standing in front of me right now that could either run me off or keep me on this rig for another couple weeks. So
yeah,
I'm probably going to do that. But then hopefully when you communicate it back to the AES office, the account manager, so yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, we can go ahead and do that, and let me just communicate with so-and-so. But yeah, you kind of get stuck in the middle a lot until, again, maybe you've been on the rig and sort of you've been sort of with the same crew, with the same company man, and there's a lot of good communication. But a lot of it, I find, stems from the relationship between the customers and their personnel.
Yes.
Like, if they've got good communication with the field and the office, a lot of times that helps the drilling or the mud engineer, because then hopefully the communication is a line coming to the account manager to where everyone is on the same page.
Yes, and I think the big thing I see sometimes is, especially if you have a very experienced field team,
yeah,
and you have a younger drilling engineer, there's a lot of apprehension about, hey, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And depending on how salty the field guys are, it could be, well, we're not going to. Or, and I think sometimes from when we've tried to trial new things and that kind of thing, there's a tension of, we really need to bring the field people in on the strategy or our objectives early.
Yeah.
So that instead of telling them what we're doing, they have a voice. They know they have a voice, and can actually maybe make it more successful by being like, I wouldn't do it this way. I would do it this way.
Right.
And
I've seen that particularly work with a customer of mine who typically has been a younger drilling engineer, and has really allowed the field to have good input. And because a drilling engineer, and if we were to just kind of discuss that role, I mean, it's about the design, the planning, the permitting. They typically select vendors for major services, and they have sort of the general oversight, and they are ultimately the one responsible for the AFE when it goes to their drilling and their management.
Yep.
So if a drilling engineer doesn't necessarily have a lot of operational experience, they'll then leverage their field's experience. And it's like, here's the plan, go execute. And so I've seen that work where a lot of times the drilling engineer will, sort of not necessarily have as much pride and ego to allow the field to make decisions. And then they have a great relationship. And even in spud meetings, it's, hey, we're doing this, and this. John out there on H&P 500, do you agree with this? Is there anything you would change? Can we make this any better? And there's a lot of actually communication versus like, here's what we're doing, cut and dry.
Yeah.
So that tends to work. And to your point, I think just the overall landscape now is you do probably have a lot more field personnel who have more years of experience than, say, folks in the office as drilling engineers. So that can create tension going back to the different roles and the experience levels.
Yeah, I mean, what caught my attention was I was in Midland, and our engineering manager out there was like, we saw this when things were really picking up in 14, where the field had all this stroke, and then the downturn happened, and all of a sudden it was back at the office. He goes, and I don't know what it is, but now you're starting to see the field have a lot more influence again. And it's sort of weird, like from a commercial perspective, it's like whether the drilling engineers or procurement has a say depends on, when things go south, it's normally procurement just gets to pick all the vendors based on the cheapest thing they can get.
Yes.
And then when the price of oil is a little healthier, the drilling engineer, they're like, look, you pick your best people, and we're not gonna ask any questions as long as everything does what it does.
Yeah, I would say another kind of way to put it too is when things get when the market and when activity goes down, tends to be a lot more micromanaging from the office.
Yeah,
because you're really looking at your pennies versus when things are good, there's a little more, I guess, wiggle room, but it's about performance and people are willing to pay for that. So it's an interesting sort of way to look at that. And so Matt, you kind of like, bringing this together to give some good, takeaway from a mud perspective or from our seat at the table. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions on how to like just overall improve what we see, or what are some things that you particularly would like to see better as we kind of move along?
One thing I think we can do is I've just appreciated what, I think I mentioned in another episode, I got the opportunity to actually do some training with some field site guys. And I think at least maybe trying to build some trust where there, a couple of them coming out of it were said, I thought I really understood drilling fluids, but I realized I have a lot more to learn. And even actually before we started the class, some of these guys had broke out in the 90s. And they were saying, I'm really looking forward to learning. And I was like, man, that is great. But also, if you're working in the field, you're rotating. Like when your hitch ends, like you want to go home. You don't want to sit through some training class.
Yeah.
But if we can do more of that and make it worthwhile, I think it ultimately creates that. Okay, now we understand each other. I have a better idea of what you're trying to do. Because a lot of these guys who've seen it all, they've seen examples of people coming in and being like, hey, I got this great idea. And they're like, dude, not again. Right? Like, because they're go, right? That's their job.
Yeah.
And so if it's like, okay, I understand there's more nuance to this than the other 10 times I've been told we're going to do something. Because a lot of what they see is patterns of, hey, another service provider trying to sell us something.
Yeah.
I think there's that. I think it comes down to people, right? And these types of relationships. And, I think there's a lot of fear of confrontation. I think sometimes the field guys want a little pushback, like they respect you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I don't know if this is the greatest example, but I was going as a technical specialist on a rig in Qatar. Flew halfway across the world, got there. I go into the company man's office. We have a specific procedure that has already been approved by everybody. And I go in and I start just running him through, hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go check inventory, find these things, get people moving. And he's like, we're not going to do any of that. And I was like, okay. I was like, so when's the next chopper out of here? And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, the only reason I'm here was to do this job, and make sure it's successful. And I don't really have the chance to do that. So like, I'm just going to go home. And it was like, whoa, wait. And as soon as he figured out that it was just like, don't wait. I was like, I'm not getting a rig bonus for being here. Like, it was one of those, like, don't care. All of a sudden it was like, go do whatever you need to do.
Nice.
And I think in some ways it was a test. I think in some ways I could have shook him up because he was just like, but I also had to, I'd been doing it for at least 10 years by that point, where it was just like, try me, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, where I really didn't care.
Yeah.
And then,
no, that's but to your point, it's like a 2 or 3 year hand wouldn't be able to do that.
No,
They would go in there and say, okay, yeah, whatever you want to do. I think I'm supposed to work under your directive, and this is just a guideline, but it's not set in stone, and kind of do whatever you do to make them happy. But yeah, to your point, I think, yeah, people a lot of times in the field, just like sort of any sort of, you know, tough, rugged working environment, you're going to get tested. And so if you just fold and roll over, then they know they may not trust you and your word because you're just trying to make people happy. But yeah, you got to stick up for yourself and what you're supposed to be doing. If you know it's right, then it's okay, good. Like, I want a little pushback. And even folks in the office, they like a little pushback respectfully. You know, like a perfect example, we have a guy in Midland who runs a pretty large account for us, and I've seen him multiple times over the years, you know, challenge more and more what the drilling engineers are trying to do, and they've told me they love it. Like every time they talk to him, it's like they feel like they're challenged, but they know because of the level of experience and expertise that ultimately, you know, the fellow I'm speaking of is you know, most of the time right.
Yeah, like, I mean, that where it's like, hey, you're making me better by making me think through this.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is, I don't know if you've only been at it for a couple of years. Like, I think in some ways you do have to go lean on your account manager and be like, hey, what do you want me to do in this? What would you have done? And like kind of make sure somebody's got your back before you make a move. Yeah. And at the same time, like, you know, stand up when you can stand up and figure out the dynamic with, you know, whoever's in the field. And then, I don't know, we're always looking for a gentler, kinder oil field. I guess, you know, if I was able to talk to some of those guys out on the rig, I'd say, you know, look, we got some good guys, you know, give them a chance. And if you think there are concerns, like, let's all talk about it. Like,
yeah. Very
but,
true.
You know, we have seen a few things where a lot of times decisions are made and we can do more to provide context that says, okay, I know you've always done it this way, but here's why it's different. Mm-hmm. And, oh, okay, then we should try it that way. But we've also seen, you know, guys out there who, you know, maybe they work in the field because they don't like people. I don't know, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, it's almost like, I think, would you agree that your time in the field probably made you a better salesperson in the future?
Yeah, and you hear that a lot, right? Is your best years of experience are the ones you spent in the field, because that sort of helps build the foundation for everything else after that. So, yeah, I mean, just having not even just the knowledge, but just dealing and understanding how the field folks think.
Yeah.
You can help bridge the gap a lot of times with your own people and then with the customer, and so 100%. I mean, and then too, it just from a credibility standpoint, like most people who, if you talk about the years that you spent, you know, working offshore, or, you know, when you were a rig hand or a mud engineer and did all these things, this, that, and the other, then there's just that level of like, okay, like I can sort of trust what this individual's saying. And yeah, the credibility piece is certainly nice, but not a lot of people get that opportunity, or they might spend just a little bit of time in the field and then are expected to, you know, perform at the same level. And I would just, you know, encourage anyone out there who's eager to get into the office, you know, spend another year or two if you can, depending on your, you know, family circumstance, whatever. But that time in the field is super helpful. And it's nice to see too, what I value is dealing with customers who's sort of have a training program where they're forced to be in the field, not just go from school to the office and then try and, you know, dictate what the rig's doing, especially even on mud, because they went to a few drilling fluids classes, and you know, they might have went to some mud school for 2 days, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, this is how we're supposed to do it. Seeing drilling engineers that have spent some time in the field, and even if it was as a night company rep for 6 months, because a lot of times it's not that long, right? But even that sometimes is nice, because then they're like, oh, now I get the challenge. Because there's things that they don't realize, that if anything can go wrong on a rig, it will go wrong. And so if a report's late, or sometimes the numbers don't necessarily jive, well, there's a chance there's a good reason for it, just because something might have broken down or this and that. And so it just kind of, that piece obviously helps the whole sort of office and field dynamic as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's always going to be some sort of tension where you're going to have to learn how to juggle being in the middle of these things where you're there to do a job, you have some experience and you have the opportunity to speak up, but at the same time, if your customer, like any other situation where you have two people working for the same company that aren't on the same page, or maybe even don't like each other, there's going to be times when you may be pressured to take sides, and you've got to find the right way to navigate that to serve the customer the best.
Yeah, and I think where this really becomes the biggest problem is if something sort of dramatic or there's an occurrence that happens downhole.
Yes.
That's when this, and if you haven't been in the field and you're kind of just like, oh, this sounds kind of like, gray area-ish, like what are they really talking about? But at the end of the day, is like if there's something that happens on a rig, this is where it can get really complicated because people are at risk of losing their job, or if a service company is losing like the opportunity to keep working for that customer. So then let's call a spade. Then you get people throwing people under the bus, trying to protect themselves, maybe the people on the rig, maybe your own people. And so if you can, like, again, have a good line of communication, you're well documented, there's trust, then hopefully you don't get into this like pointing finger thing and everyone's at fault, because that's really where this can become very serious and has like a lot of financial implications. So, that's sort of like worst case scenario, but on a day-to-day basis, even this stuff becomes challenging. But I would say is like, if you're a new mud engineer or someone with not a lot of years experience, like do your best to build trust, do the right thing. If you feel like something doesn't make sense, discuss it with your account managers. If you feel like you're in a position to sort of like respectfully challenge an idea or a thought, especially when it comes to safety, do that.
Yeah.
Again, hopefully, rigs aren't going to be fully automated for a long time, so we're going to be dealing with this for a while.
Yeah.
And but I will say, I think that overall the trajectory and what I've seen over the years is like there's been a mindset and a culture shift within sort of the drilling world. It's gotten, I don't want to say easier, but it's gotten a lot. It's opened up doors for different personalities to actually work on a rig. Whereas like I think years ago, you had to fit in this box, and if you didn't, like there was no chance in heck you were gonna last. But I see people like, oh wow, yeah, okay, like you're a mud engineer, and that's great, because a lot of times years ago that there's things that might have been a little tougher for that individual, which nowadays is not as bad.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it is like not all field people are ogres. There are certainly ones. It's all walks of life, but a lot of them can remember what it was like to break out, or a lot of them can remember some of these things. And as you build trust in that relationship, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. To some degree, you can even ask it like, hey, do you mind if I share a thought on this? And they might say, I don't care what you think. Or they might say, you know what do you got? I think you're right. Like there's a fair amount more like openness. I think we have better, data and other things that we can sort of illustrate like, hey, here's where this worked before. That's what we're going to try and do here. Yeah. It just, it all comes down to people, and there's different personalities. You start to figure out like, why does this customer like this person so much? And it's like, oh, well, they're always out on the pits, like always. Yeah. And like, I was kind of one of those guys. I would always I'd make a round even if anything wasn't going on at pretty regular times. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like I wasn't just going to go out there to be out there. But there are some guys, especially like drilling consultants who are like, I always see them out there, always doing something. Well, it could be doing nothing. Like maybe they should be doing a mud check or or whatever. And so like even the vibe of what expectations are of like this is what a good mud engineer is to me can vary. And so I think that's where especially mud engineers figure out like how to be a chameleon. Figure out what this guy likes quick, do it, and hopefully build that relationship where you can kind of express yourself a bit more as trust grows. Yeah. But,
no, it's kind of a close out on that point, and we'll wrap up. But yeah, it's just the overall dealing with different personalities. And some company, we're all there to drill a hole in the ground, but everyone kind of looks at it differently on how you get there. Yeah. And so, you may be on 1 week with a hitch doing one thing one way, and Next thing you know, there's crew change on the coming man side, and you're doing things completely different.
Yes.
To achieve the same result.
Yes.
That can be challenging, especially for those who bounce around from rig to rig, maybe because they're a floater or rigs pop up and down. But that can be very challenging. And so, but anyways, it's I guess, takeaways, we kind of already mentioned it, but I think overall it's just a good conversation. I think it's one that if there are any customers out there that want to chime in and kind of add to it, I'd love to hear from that side of the table as well. But, we're a people business. Nothing will be fully automated anytime soon. And so it's dealing with people, different personalities, building that trust, and hopefully building long-lasting relationships and working relationships at that.
Absolutely.
Cool deal. Well, with that said, folks, if you have any questions, thoughts, reach out on LinkedIn. Matt and I are on there, so please send us a message, or you can reach us at the Flowline podcast at aesfluids.com. Connect with the AES Fluids page on LinkedIn. Lots of great content put out there. The tech tips and a lot of the YouTube stuff that we've put out for quite a while now is a great way to keep learning. A lot of good visuals out there to learn more about drilling fluids. And until next time, folks, take care. And for those going back to school, if they have kids, good luck. And another school year is upon us. Let's go.
Good luck. Be safe in traffic.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please tune in next week for another exciting episode of the Flowline. And remember, may your returns always be full and your trips always smooth. Views expressed in this program belong to participants and not their employees. The program is for informational purposes only and cannot take the place of seeking professional advice. Copyright AES Drilling Fluids.